Any moment.
Toa.
Huh? Two-day Toa. I love that. That always stuck in my head like a weird splinter.
That was from Jedi, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think he was translating for Jabba or something like that.
You mean Splinter the Mind's Eye?
That's a book's reference that I don't get.
That was an Alan Dean Foster deep cut.
It would hurt to get a splinter there.
Alan Dean Foster deep cut sounds like something you'd order at a steakhouse. But anyway,
when they were open.
Yeah. Hey, Steak and Shake is still open. That counts.
Hey, you want to eat your food outside in the
just a shake house?
No, just hitting you in the face.
Well, all right. So we are officially live, and this is What If He Doesn't Survive Live, our weekly recap of The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. Now, this is our penultimate episode. Next week, if you can believe it, marks 2 months since we started season 2. The time has just flown by, and I believe we're going to have a fun special guest on for that episode. So that'll be a treat.
He's got to improve the rest of the episodes.
I might be auditioning a replacement. You don't know. No.
There you go.
He'll be like our Dave Filoni. Dave, we need you to clean this up.
What are you implying? Are you wait? But does that make me the Favreau? No. Okay.
He'll be the Joan Rivers to your Johnny Carson.
Wow.
Which one's the director? I know the directors. I have no idea how to say the last name. Which was Rick?
Famayui.
I think it's a Famayua. And I'm open to being corrected on that. But before we talk about the episode at hand, there's some big kind of breaking Star Wars news that came out of the it was like a Disney investor call, right? I think from the other day, because they announced a whole bunch of Marvel stuff, a whole bunch of Star Wars stuff.
It's almost like the news that they had saved for Star Wars
Celebration. They got the catalog open.
Just got dumped at this investors call or whatever. And we were all privy. It was like a global Zoom call. We were all privy to this investor call where not just 10 new Star Wars films series were announced, but Marvel series, Disney sequels. We're going to get Sister Act 3, Enchanted 2. I mean, hey, yeah.
I hadn't heard that one, and I'm going to pretend I still haven't.
The origin of Buzz Lightyear, where that's going to be voiced by Chris Evans.
Yeah. Mighty Ducks.
Is there going to be Mighty Ducks series?
There's going to be a Mighty Ducks series. Emilio Estevez
and the whole crew. Yeah.
The girlfriend from Bad Santa is going to have a lead in it, I think.
I'm sorry. You mean Lauren Graham from Gilmore Girls? The girlfriend from Bad Santa. What's wrong with you, Mike?
Wasn't she in Boogie Nights? I mean, she gets a little bit more credit than girlfriend.
That was Heather Graham.
Oh, yeah. I was like, wait, she was? I got to watch that movie again.
Too many Grahams for me.
Okay, so let's talk about the Star Wars series.
Yeah, so we knew that Kenobi was happening. It's I wish it was just called Kenobi, but I think they're calling it Obi-Wan Kenobi, which, why don't they just call Ahsoka Tano? But so we have a Kenobi series. The big news with that is, besides the whole Boston stuff that was just hilarious a couple weeks ago, that Hayden Christensen's coming back as Darth Vader for that show.
Now, because this is going to take place right after Revenge of the Sith, or right after Revenge of the Sith, right? I guess after Rogue Squadron. I don't know. Well, it's before Rogue Squadron. Yeah. Okay. So, but because at this point, Anakin is Darth Vader. He's in the suit. So unless they have like a series of flashbacks or something in which Obi-Wan is talking to Anakin and there's important stuff that pertains to the current story. I mean, imagine if it is like actually Darth Vader interacting with Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's just going to be either a guy in a suit or they're going to show him like his helmet off and he's all burnt to a crisp or something, and it won't really happen. I'm not opposed to this because I haven't seen Hayden Christensen. He kind of dipped out of
from what I understand, Hollywood and the kind of acting scene for a long time. It's been 15 years since Revenge of the Sith, probably 16, by the time this thing comes out. So maybe and I hate to speak ill of him, but I have so before. So why not? He may have improved as an actor since the last time we saw him. It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
He'll be 40 at this point, probably, right?
I mean, he has nostalgia in his favor, so
I guess
time heals. So I guess people think that they're okay with it now. They're happy with it. I'm gonna guess probably in some capacity he'll be like in a flashback or a fantasy sequence. Like think of like the sequence of The Dark Knight Rises where Bruce Wayne thinks he sees Liam Neeson, Ra's al Ghul there. It could be something like that.
Well, the other thing that occurred to me is, what if this is a Terminator Dark Fate situation where the internet was ablaze, like, oh my God, Edward Furlong is back as John Connor, and really it was just his likeness for the CGI dummy that gets blown up in the first 5 minutes.
And I'm also just wondering, like, how much is he going to be in this series? He could be in. Yeah, they're announcing it, but he could just be showing up for one chapter. Who knows?
Yeah, he could just show up and be like, hey, and then that's it. Yeah.
If that, because I mean, also it's 15 years ago, so he's going to be 40. He's going to look quite different than the last time. If it is a flashback situation, he's going to have to look believable as a 25-year-old kid.
Yeah. I mean,
he still looks the same kind of.
Would you want to? He does kind of. Would you want to? Would you want to come back if you're not going to show your face? I mean, I don't know. I mean, and again, we don't know. Pascal. Well, it's all about the money, right?
Yeah, exactly. Give me a good paycheck. I'll show him.
He's not hurting right now. He's in a new Robert Rodriguez movies and a new Wonder Woman movie. He's fine. So the other one is Ahsoka, which is a no-brainer. I mean, obviously, since Rosario Dawson was a big hit in that chapter of Mandalorian recently, it makes sense. She's an intriguing character. She's a fan favorite. That'll be interesting. That's also, I'm pretty sure, a limited series like Kenobi. And limited is subjective right now. We don't know if these turn out to be successful. I don't know. I mean, Ewan McGregor is fine without Kenobi, honestly.
Yeah.
So what's going to keep him coming? Continuing after this. Besides money, after this limited series, who knows? Lando by Justin Simeon, which is interesting. Dear white people. We'll see if Glover comes back. I don't know.
Or Glover.
Yeah, Cal Risson could be sitting in his wheelchair like old Indiana Jones and Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, and just thinking back.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what Billy D did throughout Rise of Skywalker. They just had him sit down most of the time, just do the scene, be like, "Hey, kids!"
All right, we got a comment there.
Yeah,
Sujiwa a bit too angry. Dude needs to chill. I mean, he was burnt in lava, so he definitely needed to chill a little bit.
A little bit,
definitely.
Oh, by the way, I think we should take a moment to say it's not only a comment from Sujiwa, it's a comment from Birthday Boy Sujiwa. He is
happy birthday.
He's 21 years young today. A joke I used on the podcast we recorded a few minutes ago.
But 21 years older than you? Or no, sorry.
Nice. And then he also responded, yes, paychecks as the motivation for returning, I'm sure.
Disney money. So we also have Rangers of the New Republic, and the New Republic has been established in Mandalorian, especially in this season. So that could be interesting. What's going on at the New Republic? Filoni and Favreau will be heading that up. Bad Batch is an animated series that's a spinoff of Clone Wars, which could be cool if you know anything about Bad Batch. They're kind of like a ragtag motley crew of clones, okay? Rogue Squadron is something that I've wanted for a long time, since the early 90s. I don't know if it's going to have Wedge Antilles in it. I don't know. It could be interesting. There's some great novels out there of Rogue Squadron. There's been some good comics. But Patty Jenkins is assigned to direct, and that's very interesting. So apparently,
like the pilot, or is she going to be a showrunner? Do you know?
No, it's a movie.
Oh, it's a movie. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a passion project for her because apparently her father, before he died, was a fighter pilot. So she wants to make a and there's let's be honest. I mean, Lucas has always been a big fan of dogfights, and he's put some good dogfights in the movies, in the Star Wars movies. Like the opening of Revenge of the Sith is just pretty incredible, So basically, she wants to do justice to some great fighter pilot action scenes and put it in the Star Wars universe. And Rogue Squadron's a good place to do that. So we'll see. I don't know if it's going to be around leading up to New Hope or within the New Hope, storyline. I don't know. We'll see.
You'll find out. I mean, I didn't watch the video because I'm like, oh, it's just someone talking. Like, let me know when the footage.
Like how nobody watches these.
But we're not filming a Star Wars show.
Right.
Right. It's like a non-preview to a preview.
Yeah. So the other one, I will say the one thing that's interesting about Bad Batch is it is including an earlier version, an animated version of Ming-Na's Fennec, who we've seen in this series. So we're going to get a little bit of her, a younger version of her, and maybe some mercenary past. The only other thing I wrote down that I could think of is this other mini series called The Acolyte, and I think that has to do. It's a female-led, a female protagonist, a female-led show that has to deal with kind of like the first sparks of the dark side of the Force. So that could be interesting. Yeah, but
so this is like a way old history story.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
That's like the High Republic. Book series. I'm not sure if they're going to adapt that to screen. I think they're going to see how the books do first. Right. I mean, I'd love to see something that's like Knights of the Old Republic.
They just started releasing those High Republic novels this fall,
that's
right?
the same era as before that.
What's that?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little.
They just started to release those novels this fall, right? This past fall.
The
High Republic.
Yes. Yeah, okay. They did. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna guess that'll probably be in the canon soon. They'll see how some of these go. I don't know. With some of these shows, I feel pretty I feel enthusiastic for Kenobi, certainly, especially since it's like a mini series. They're going to really, I think, focus hopefully on a much more emotional, philosophical curve with Star Wars, something that we need. Because I like the action, but I get tired of constant action. I'd like to see something a little more introspective. Hopefully, Kenobi focuses a bit on Obi-Wan's regrets, him trying to forgive himself as a man, etc., etc., etc. I'd like to see that. And of course, yes, we'll have action. We'll have the action for the kids. The kids love the action. Let's see. Andor, I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, who was like, I would love to see movie about that guy who just talks about
the guy with the robot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is any talk of this if Alan Tudyk's going to be back?
He'll be back.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I did not pay attention to this. A lot of this caught me by surprise, especially when David sent me the article, like the release of the 10 shows. So this is all kind of new to me. The Cassian Andor, I don't really care, but that's the kind of thing that makes me intrigued because I wonder if this is I know it's different. Marvel is a different entity, but this feels kind of like what they did with Iron Man in 2008. They take like a character that a lot of people don't know about or don't care about and make him cool and use that to create something kind of magical. I'm totally willing to do that because Rogue One was not my favorite Star Wars movie. That's saying it lightly. And he was not one of my favorite Star Wars characters. That's putting it very lightly. But I'm open to checking it out. Now, my big question is, how do we want to handle this? Are we going to do like a weekly show covering these, or do we like cover the pilots and decide if we want to go on with them?
This week in Star Wars.
That's what we'll call it, yeah. Or we'll call it This Weekend Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, I'd definitely be interested in covering Kenobi, but I don't know. It depends how they're spacing these out.
Yeah, we got to really see how it plays out in the end.
Yeah.
Because it could be a lot, it could be a little.
I'm actually surprised and kind of whelmed that they didn't announce a Vader series.
Hold on. Maybe Hayden Christensen appearing in Obi-Wan is going to be the seed, kind of like Ahsoka showing up in Mandalorian.
Yeah.
This could be our entry, which would be kind of fun. I don't know if Hayden Christensen would be the lead in a Vader series, because ultimately it strikes me as sort of being like the Mandalorian, where you're going to be probably following him in the early days of the Empire, tracking down Jedi, taking over worlds. So it almost doesn't matter who you have in the suit, as long as you got. I hope someone's recording a crap ton for James Earl Jones to say, because we already lost one Darth Vader last week.
No kidding, right?
And if you've seen Rogue One, James Earl Jones, his name is his voice. Yeah. Just like Darth Vader, where's my back pills?
Honestly, I mean, it's hard to replace somebody like him, but they've done it on the animated version, so it's possible.
Well, I thought that was James Earl Jones in Rebels, but I know certainly in Ford, it might have not been, but they did a really good job if it wasn't.
Yeah.
And what they do need to do a series about an account of the Empire. Wow, it's our story. About an accountant for the Empire. Yeah. Oh my goodness! Just think of the amount of audits that they have to go through.
Doesn't Disney have license for Sesame Street? They could just hire the Count and put him in an Imperial suit and go 1, 2, 3 trash compactors.
I'm just thinking of the Count during Order 66 killing the younglings.
No, you have
no younglings.
They definitely need to do that. No, I'm thinking C-3PO goes over to the dark side and becomes Old Man Sax. Anyway, sorry. Let's move on.
I'm a believer.
I was even perfecter transition to talking about the Mandalorian chapter 15, right? Do I have that right?
Ian's favorite chapter of the series.
No, seriously, unironically, this is probably... if I have to say, it's in my top 3, possibly my second favorite episode of either season.
You just don't like Grogu.
No,
I don't like Grogu.
It's not that I don't like Grogu. He's in my heart. But no, you see, here's the thing, and this is why I knew this is going to be a really fun conversation. I actually watched this on Friday night with my wife. We were both, sitting on the couch, like,
bored.
Want to do Mandalorian? Yeah, let's get it over with. Mandalorian. We turned it on, and I was hooked from Jump Street. And after it was over is when I Facebook messaged you guys. I said, Sunday's going to be the most boring show we've ever done. I have no complaints about this episode. And then I get back response from David saying, I do. And then Mike, you said something else. I'm like, oh my God, the one time I think we're all going to be in sync on something, it just completely falls apart. So
I thought you were being sarcastic.
No, I honestly, I love this episode.
Okay.
So
tell us why.
But
you should do the summary.
Because it highlights everything that you said you don't like about the series.
No,
I'm like, I see what Ian's saying.
No, it doesn't. It does in the meta context, but in terms of what the series, it does everything that I want the series to do. My only problem with it, and it's something that I discussed last week, which I think might be tuning into what you guys may have a problem with, is at this point, it's too little too late for this season. This should have been episode 3 or 4, chapter of the season. So the arc of what this episode was going to be. Sajua says it was. I'll get to your TIE fighter comment, Sajua. I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about this all week, and I have all weekend, and I know why. No, it's not filler. not by a long stretch.
No, I have an F word for it, and it's forgettable.
All right, no. But the TIE fighter thing I can answer. But we'll get to that once people know what we're talking about. By the way, you should know what we're talking about, because if you haven't watched the new episode of The Mandalorian, why are you here?
Why are you here?
Now I'm thinking of Star Trek 3. Or no, that's how do you feel? Okay. We knew at the end of the last episode that they were going to go break. Is it Mayfield, right? That's
Mayfeld.
Mayfeld. Okay, they're going to break him out of prison. He's played by Bill Burr, famous comedian, irascible comedian. They're going to break him out of space prison because he can get them into an imperial frequency, right? Or he can help them get to some information they need to get to Moff Gideon.
Yeah.
That was the setup for this episode, which we knew last week. And so I predicted there's going to be an episode, they break him out, they go do a thing, and then it's going to end, and then we'll be left with what needs to be a 6-hour season finale to wrap up all the loose ends in the season. And that's where we are. And that is perturbing to me on one level because, again, we have to wait a year to find out how a lot of these things resolve themselves, because next week, I'd be surprised if the thing was any longer than an hour, but it might be, an hour 20. I know Netflix has done that before with their finales. But so they go break out Mayfeld from this junk planet. Everyone kind of piles on to Slave One, including Cara Dune. They go off to this planet, which is like a ravaged, like South American jungle planet, where once again there is a secret Empire base that looks
very familiar.
That is mining unobtainium.
Rhydonium, folks.
Rhydonium. It's the same. It's the same chemical symbol.
Big red thing that goes boom.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So Julia also says it's one of the weakest eps, but did have a good couple of moments, the mask off moment, etc., which we'll get to as well, because that's another trope that I didn't include in Mango Bingo, because I think wasn't it the second to last episode of the first season where he takes off the mask in front of the droid, or did they do that in the finale?
Last one.
Okay. But it's like right towards the end of the season, we're going to see, Pedro Pascal without the mask. So they have to get into this mining facility where they are, I guess it's a processing center for this highly volatile material that is like so bad that, any bump, it could, blow up, essentially.
Wages of Fear. It's a riff off of Wages of Fear, which William Friedkin remade as the Sorcerer in the 70s.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So they have to masquerade as stormtroopers to get onto this transport that's transporting the stuff to get into the base in order to get onto this call station to get the frequency to, it's very convoluted.
To get.
Yes. And yes, I understand what you're saying. This has all of the hallmarks of things that I've complained about in the series. But one thing that I have been asking for and looking for is a lot of what's in this episode, which is great, I think, philosophical conversations, great extended scenes with characters talking about stuff that really matters in the grander narrative of the story. And you get a few of those here. You get not only the wonderfully I'll call it racist speech by Bill Burr talking about Mando and questioning his religion, because he's essentially saying, you don't have to keep that mask on. It's a choice. It's not a matter of being compelled to do something. It's something you choose to do. And when it comes to these certain beliefs, people only take it as far as they can before they're pushed, and then they have to make some hard decisions. He's like, you could just take that thing off your head. And I immediately thought, if you were to extrapolate that to our world, you could say that to someone wearing a crucifix or a hijab, right? So It's a very meaty, kind of a complicated issue that, David, you and I were talking about this, I think, a few episodes ago when Boba Fett was really coming back into the scene, or, potentially. Like, wouldn't it be great to have these two people from different strains of the same religion having a conversation kind of like this? I love the fact that it's coming from a complete outsider looking in on the Mandalorian religion and asking some questions. And then later on, Mando being pushed to that point and having to make a decision to save, his own skin and also this greater mission, and ultimately Grogu, and seeing how he kind of moves in that world. Because he doesn't just take off his helmet in front of a droid. He takes off in front of a whole bunch of people because he kind of has to. The other bit I really liked was Richard Brake, who is a wonderful character actor. He played Joe Chill in Batman Begins, but he's also been in a number of Rob Zombie movies.
Game of Thrones.
I've never seen Game of Thrones. I know he was in that, but I can't speak to that. But he's fantastic, and I think his Imperial Officer character sitting down, having this conversation with Mayfeld, not only being a threatening presence because of what he represents, but also the cold, calculating nature of what this post-Empire, pre-First Order mindset is, and drawing out of Mayfeld these feelings that he's been suppressing all these years, post being a part of the Empire and carrying out atrocities, what that does to him, and ultimately what Mayfeld does to that processing plant at the end. This is a very rich story with a lot of, great connections to things that we've already seen and hopefully things we will see. So I understand there's some logistical problems with like the transport, and why is this highly volatile chemical like basically sitting on top of this transport in a locker that anyone can open up and break into? The TIE fighter thing. TIE fighters are essentially like fighter jets. They don't hover. You're not going to get a TIE fighter escort like driving at the same pace as a ground tank. They come in, they shoot, and they circle back. That's the way that they're designed, right?
And even so, you could easily take down a TIE fighter if you see it following a transport, because, like you said, you could see it coming. But if they're, coming in fast and shooting off these pirates, and I have a theory, I don't really think that they're pirates. I think that they're people who actually live there, but whatever.
Well, and that's another
people, yeah.
Well, and that's another aspect that I thought was very interesting, because when they're going into this, getting onto this planet, kind of driving through on their way to this processing center, before they realize there's any trouble that pirates are blowing things up, they see some wreckage from other, they don't know exactly what this wreckage is, but it looks like Imperial transports. They see a whole bunch of impoverished people kind of giving them the stink eye along the road. And then these pirates show up on these, they look kind of rough. Yeah, they're old skiffs. The pirates themselves look kind of rough and tumble, like they just came out of the jungle, but they have these brand new shiny thermal detonators. And it recalled to mind something that David and we talked about the other day, the John Wayne, John Ford Cavalry trilogy, in that middle movie where you had the Apaches buying weapons from these American arms dealers. I'm like, is the New Republic supplying these munitions to these pirates to take down the remnants of the Empire? Because then I was thinking back to the newer trilogy and the DJ character, who was talking about, you think that you're fighting for the right side of things, but there are no good guys, there are no bad guys, because they're all dealing in weapons and spaceships and killing.
The Benicio del Toro character?
Yes. Yeah. And so there's moments in here that touch on each era of the Star Wars trilogy in really interesting ways. That's what I'm kind of looking for in this series. I also thought the action was pretty cool. That the stuff on the dam, sort of when they're trying to escape. I like that Cara Dune and Ming-Na Wen were sort of the spotters who were taking out the stormtroopers that was coming out. So I think there was a lot to recommend here. I'm very curious about. I've been rambling for a long time, and I know that the two people watching this will attest to that. So I want to cede the floor to you guys and find out, what problems did you really have with this episode?
I mean, I don't know if I had any problems. I mean, I think you make some valid points. I mean, it just didn't do as much for me. I just feel like I didn't expect to spend this much time with Bill Burr's character. I thought maybe we would pick him up. He'd be, along for the ride. He'd get some coordinates, and then we would be in pursuit of Moff Gideon. I didn't expect this whole episode chapter to be about that. It's not. I'm glad it's out there for some of the strong points that you mentioned. However, it's just, not something that I felt like it was just kind of a rehash. We've seen this show have riffs off of westerns and samurai movies, and now this is pretty much kind of like a World War II kind of, or a war mission kind of thing. Guns of Navarone, whatever, Wages of Fear kind of thing. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just I didn't I didn't expect to spend so much time with this, this character, Bill Burr, with Bill Burr's character. I thought I did like that. It was interesting to see that, you're kind of, when did you expect to, see yourself rooting for TIE fighters to save the day? That's kind of rare.
I didn't stand up and cheer, but in my heart I was cheering because they're talking about references. That whole fight on top of the tank reminded me, it was very much an Indiana Jones style thing.
Totally.
And especially the bit where Mando takes care of a few of these skiffs, but then the smoke clears. He's been wounded. That was another nice detail. He's not wearing his Beskar armor, but he forgets that. So he's fighting people and taking some savage hits. He actually gets kind of knocked back, and there's this great look. You can almost see Harrison Ford in The Last Crusade, where he realized the tank is going over the edge. You get that great shot where his hat flies off. You get a sort of shot like that with Mando when he sees the smoke clearing, and then there's just more battalions of these things coming at him, and he doesn't have the strength to take them on. He's like, is this it? And then you get that great Han Solo New Hope moment where the TIE fighters come in and they start shooting everybody. I was just waiting for one of them to go woohoo, kind of
yeah. And we don't see a whole lot of like hanging out with Imperials all that much from this time frame in the Star Wars universe. So it was interesting to see, like, once they arrived at their location, you have all these, stormtroopers and Imperial, whatever titles, admirals or whatever. They're all, oh, look, are those the two guys they were the only guys who made it? Oh, wow, look at those guys, It was interesting, but ultimately I just felt like with the way last chapter ended, I felt like, all right, I've just felt like we're spending way too much time with this, another mission, this character, and then in the end, Bill Burr's Mayfield's like, it's not like, hey, I feel like I owe you a debt now. Geez, I guess I'll come along with you if you need some help. No, he just walks away. And what's he going to do on that planet? How's he going to get off? And I don't know.
I don't know what he's going to do either, but I feel like he's a resourceful character. We've kind of seen that before, so he'll find a way to get out of there. But he's not. I don't think he can hitch. I don't know if Slave One could give him a ride back to wherever he wants to go, because they have to go rescue Grogu now that they can.
Right.
So he's not a joiner. He's just, I feel like him skipping out. He was a bit too cute with like Mando and Cara Dune going, well, it's too bad that Mayfeld died on the planet. Would it be a shame if anything happened? That was, comedy bits, but I didn't have a problem with him skipping town like that.
Yeah.
Mike.
Okay. So I do outside of that, I do understand that you like the philosophical sort of conversation aspect of it, but we've had these conversations before in the show. This is just a reiteration of the same conversations.
Let's back up. Tell me when we've seen these particular topics covered in this show.
Like when he takes when he tells Bo-Katan that she's not Mandalorian because she takes her helmet off and she says that he's a religious zealot, and then we see that sort of philosophy challenged.
But this is the culmination of that, because he does come to a moment where he really is forced to question what he believes and how far he's willing to go. Because if he was as diehard as he thought he was until that moment, he would have kept the helmet on and probably had to try and blast his way out of there and made a calculation that ultimately would have possibly gotten him and everybody else killed.
That's fair enough. Fair enough. I just didn't feel it emotionally. I just felt like, I know this conversation. What does it matter? You think you're better than us, but you're just the same as us. I've seen that in like 80 movies before, and it wasn't really enough to really hook or interest me particularly. When he's, I love the moment when he has to actually take the helmet off. And then like everyone in the room sees him and he's just so kind of shocked and struck with emotion, kind of realizing, oh my goodness, I actually did this thing I said I would never do, but I have to do it. Like his face says it all.
He's naked. And he
feels like he's literally
a
naked.
Nice manicured mustache.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I don't know where he had the time to do that beautiful.
That's in the outtakes.
There, yeah.
No, it's in the helmet. They've installed the little face trimmers.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's called a Mandocure. But no,
it just feels.
I was going to say to that point, because last time we saw him with his helmet off, it was
badly bruised.
He was badly bruised and it was kind of one note. But here, because there's that extended scene with the Imperial officer, we get to see more of Pedro Pascal's facial acting. Even though it's pretty much a silent part, he has kind of like silent bob it through most of this. We get a lot of the emotion, like kind of looking over at Mayfeld, like don't get me. Thing. But it's very good. It's funny, but it's also tense.
It is tense.
Yeah, it also felt a little kind of like, I don't know. I kind of had the same feeling I did with Finn's character, where you had Mayfeld, who was a former Imperial officer. He's mad at the MAGA commander. I don't know what his name is. I just call him MAGA commander. And basically, boy, we made no sacrifices. And basically, he's mad at him. He's saying, yes, you killed my friends. I'm upset at you. And then he goes around, picks up a blaster, and like shoots all the Imperials in the room who probably had families as well themselves. Like, no big deal. And he says, well, we got to sleep at night, after he shoots the red explosive device. And I'm thinking, well, now you're okay with killing Imperials. So, but then again, there's probably more backstory behind it than what they did with Finn overall. But yeah, but I did love that moment. But then outside of that, I can't help but use the word filler. And I use that term because you have 8 episodes. You have very little time to communicate such a story. You have an unpredictable length between each episode, and you're winding everyone up the week before just so then you could subvert their expectations in a way that I just felt was incredibly cheeky and didn't really service the overall story. And at the end of the day, I felt incredibly underwhelmed. And now, with the finale, I'm just so deflated. I just kind of don't care that much as to what happens.
But Grogu's still in baby cuffs. How can you not care?
He'll be all right. They'll save him.
I can't believe you.
No, they're gonna decapitate Grogu, throw a thermal detonator in his head, and
it's not like they're gonna decapitate. Yeah, it's not like they're gonna decapitate Grogu with the dark saber, and you're gonna see his head roll across the floor.
I would love that. No, here's
that would be amazing if they did that.
Here's the question, Mike.
I can just imagine Rian Johnson giggling in the corner, doing that direction. Like,
all right, so let's talk about this. Filler, I understand that critique. I don't accept it because I think there are at least 2 episodes that we've talked about previously on this season that you could have swapped, and they were earlier episodes. You could have swapped this out for them. One of them was the trip to the first or second, secret base where they learned that information. It was like I was complaining because we didn't learn anything new. It was one with the tank and canyon fight.
The t-shirt guy.
You did learn something new. They were making a lab. They had a lab.
Yeah,
right. Which you could have, as I mentioned,
you could have inserted it in any of those episodes. That little plot point. Yeah.
So my question is, if that episode didn't exist and The Believer came as episode 3 or 4, would you have as much of a problem with it, or is your main concern? And I understand this criticism because I kind of share it. We're wrapping things up next week. So we quote unquote don't have time for this stuff.
That's my main concern.
Yeah, exactly. That's like they could have just put it in episode 3, chapter. Who cares? They could have put it in the 3rd episode, and it would have been fine because we would have had both the sort of philosophical conversations, and we could have established the whole laboratory thing. It would have been fantastic, and it wouldn't have been filler, really, But when I say filler, I'm like, here's another episode where they have a shootout. I mean, technically, if you really want to get down the Boba Fett episode, outside of the Boba Fett fan service, that kind of was filler in a way, outside of them stealing Grogu.
Because we didn't even talk about Boba Fett's new painting job, but we'll get to that.
Oh, yeah. It's very shiny. Well, Yeah, it's
no,
good.
it's more matte than shiny.
It's more like it's more like
matte,
straight up.
He's got a matte finish.
Yeah.
It is kind of weird seeing that non-shiny armor, especially compared to Mando.
It looks
or Empire.
like the stall.
Yeah.
It really does. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. When you talk about that scene where Mayfeld blasted Valen Hess, Richard Brake's character, I guess I would have. I didn't necessarily see that coming, and I'm not complaining about that necessarily, but I don't feel like that was really earned, just because I would have liked to have known that here's a guy who may be psychologically unpredictable. That would have been interesting to establish in some way, instead of having this kind of like simmering. This conversation is conjuring up all this, anger in me and resentment, just by having this conversation here. Yes, seeing this guy that he used to report to or he was under the command of, triggered him, of course. But I have a hard time thinking, like, have a hard time believing that he's sitting here thinking this through. I have a hard time believing he's not sitting there thinking this through, that I could shoot this guy, but how am I going to get out of here? Mm-hmm. It's like we're all the way in the back of this area here. I mean, we had to walk through. We're in the back of this area here. We had to go to the cash station to get my my coordinates.
the ATM,
the ATM to get my coordinates. Yeah. And then we're sitting down. I mean, there's like at least 50 something troopers behind us. Wandering around. They're gonna hear a blast fire. He's not thinking this through. And I get it. It's all emotion and everything, but I would have liked to at least have had, on their way to get Mayfeld, maybe Cardoon or somebody kind of pulls Mando aside. He's like, "You sure, man? I looked at this guy's psych profile, and this guy's a little unhinged, man. You sure you want to? Is he reliable?"
I think we got some of that in his introductory episode.
The gunslinger in chapter 6,
because he's Weasley, he's unpredictable. We get that in this episode where he's straight up talking to one of the deadliest bounty hunters in the galaxy, kind of making fun of his religion and egging him on, trying to antagonize him. And as far as him taking out that blaster, I agree. I thought it was a great moment, because we've seen this sort of in movies before, where someone has been a victim of a great trauma, whether it's rape or it's typically rape, and they see the person who attacked them, and then they pull out a gun and shoot them or something, and then it's usually like a long courtroom drama or something like that, where they're trying to explain away why they murdered someone. Like, well, I was triggered, they pushed me too far, they did this horrible thing, and it's not just it's vengeance, but it's also justice, kind of a thing. And I think Mayfeld, when they sat down, he was not thinking of killing this guy, because he was thinking, how am I going to get me and my compatriot, I was going to call him a friend, but how are we going to get out of here alive? But during this conversation, it's all casual, and this guy is talking about atrocities that he's committed. Just one, actually, where tens of thousands of people died, that Mayfeld knew. And in that video that you sent me, it's one of those, and I'll link it in the show notes, like the Star Wars Easter eggs for this episode of The Mandalorian. Right. They talk about specifically what the mission was in the Star Wars lore, and it sounded horrifying, because it wasn't just a mission, it was sort of a strategy to do this on multiple planets. So when you learn a bit more about that, you're like, all right, this guy is just casually sitting here talking about it as if it's a literal chess game.
Genocide. Yeah.
Right. And so he's like, no, I can't cotton to this. I got away from people so I wouldn't have to stomach this anymore. Goodbye. Yeah. So that's why I was very much emotionally wrapped up in that. I was not so much impressed with the moment after, because then it's like, okay, now we have to have this shootout. That the next 5 minutes of that were pretty predictable, and it was only saved, I think, by the fact that I thought it was kind of cool to see the support snipers, taking people out on the dam,
and to see more Slave One action,
and the seismic charge.
Yeah. That was awesome.
Incredible. Yes.
Yeah. I mean I have to say, it was cool to see them in the interior of Slave One and seeing the whole hull just kind of swerve, because they had to turn and they had to pivot, and that's how the Slave One works. And then, of course, as the TIE fighters chase him, he used the same seismic charge that Jango used in Attack of the Clones, and that was great.
Well, Slave One is Jango's ship, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
I think it's his dad's ship, yeah.
Actually, it's funny because in the opening or the establishing scene on that wreckage planet, something came to mind that it hit for just a split second before my question was answered, something we talked about last week, which was, is Slave One a unique ship? In the junk planet, we're scanning across it. You see Slave One in the distance. I'm like, oh, there's another Slave One. Because it looked like it might have been junky. I'm like, no, that's the real one.
No, that was Mando showing up. This is such a stupid nitpick, but I wanted the actual sound of the charge to be much louder, like when it exploded, because I'm just like, that's kind of like, it should be like shattering my speakers when it goes off.
Depends on your speakers, I guess.
I had a home theater playing it, so
okay.
Right. I don't know. I want to be like Sex Tighter, like louder. But
yeah. I mean, I look, it's not the worst, but I think as far as like you said, where this chapter is positioned and how it plays out, I'm expecting like, this is essentially the third act of season 2, and I was expecting just like one cliffhanger after the other, and just like, oh my God, but no, this one was just like, okay, all right, that's a reference to that, and okay, all right, didn't expect that, all right, why so much Bill Burr, and why is he without his helmet?
I feel like you guys don't like Bill Burr.
I know. Hey, listen.
I listen to his podcast. I watch his comedy specials.
I know, but you keep saying like there's so much Bill Burr, and I'm like, Bill Burr.
I'm going to be voting for him very soon because I thought he was fantastic in King of Staten Island. So he was really good. Hey, if this was, Gilbert Gottfried, I'd probably have the same problem with him. Maybe even more so.
Oh, man.
Hey, Mando! Take off your helmet!
We're all the same, Mando!
But here's the thing.
Just because you don't want to take your helmet off!
Let me tell you about the aristocrats.
Sounds very Aladdin from Disney.
Yeah,
of course. The other... I'll get nitpicky too. It's like when they arrive, Mayfeld still has his helmet off and he's in costume. And I'm like, why? Nobody else there has their helmet off in the hangar. Nobody. But he's just walking around with his bald head sticking out like a sore thumb. I'm like,
because he wasn't going to have, he didn't have the same contract that Pedro Pascal had. No, I mean, look, there's a nitpick. There's a few things that I have that was a question that I had. Also, when they go over to that Darth ATM or whatever, and they're scanning it to get the information, Mando takes his helmet off in order to read the thing, and it scans him and still gives him the information he needs. Like, I understand because Richard Brake he kind of made reference to this, and it sort of makes sense about how everything is sort of in disarray. So maybe they don't have all the security protocols. Maybe if the system just recognizes someone who's using the terminal, like, looks legit, and gives them right, yeah, it's a person who's in our database. Maybe that works, but yeah, that was kind of fuzzy to me. It seemed like they're so wrapped up in their codes and their TK report numbers and stuff. Yeah. Oh, I love the TPS reports line. Well, it's a wonderfully weird reference that is outside of Star Wars that some people are going to get.
TPS reports. When did I did?
He's like, oh, come on, my friend here. He's a little hard of hearing, and come on, we got to go fill out our TPS reports.
Yeah, it's a reference to.
If that was ad-libbed. I wonder if that was ad-libbed.
It was. I'm sure.
Very much well.
Yeah.
Could have been.
Yeah.
But no, so I mean that was my only real concern with the episode was some of the security protocols, but I don't know what the security situation with this whole thing is. I did love Richard Brake's line about how they were going to bring order to the galaxy because these are literally the first order. And I was wondering about this material that they are processing, because I know it was referenced in Rebels or Clone Wars. Yeah. Rebels. I'm wondering if this is the same stuff that they're going to be using to develop the Starkiller base technology.
Maybe.
It feels like it's world building, it's seed planting for what's going to come in the later movies, and I feel like it's doing a more elegant job of it than those movies, perhaps because there is more breathing room.
Well, it made me wonder too. How is this guy related as far as in his position to, where Moff Gideon is, where Thrawn is? Is Thrawn even with the Empire or the Imperials? We won't know until a couple seasons or Ahsoka's own show. But I'm really curious as to see. All right, is the group that Moff Gideon is with linked in with this group that we saw in this chapter? If so, how? Are they communicating together?
Well, we might find it, and that was sort of a complaint that I had a couple episodes ago too, is all these different characters piling in, all these potential storylines, and only so many episodes per season. With the announcement we talked about at the beginning of this episode, with all of these new Star Wars miniseries, series, and movies coming out, are they going to be answering some of those questions in there, creating more of this Marvel style Star Wars universe where everything is connected and you have to kind of watch everything to stay in the loop, which I'm not necessarily complaining about, especially because I want more of this information to move the bigger story forward.
It's the big new expanded universe.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It makes sense. What did you guys think of what and how Mando revealed himself to Moff Gideon and what he said? He basically said the same line that Moff Gideon said at the last chapter of the last season.
Corny. It was kind of having his whole Taken moments, I had
a hard time believing that he would reveal himself to.
It seems out of character. It's like all of a sudden he's we get that he's opening up more as he talks more, but then all of a sudden, he's sending messages and talking smack,
right. But this is something that we've been praising for the last few episodes, which is that Mando is changing, and with Grogu being taken from him, to use that word taken, it is bringing something out in him where you're discovering that he will literally go to the ends of the galaxy. He will literally turn his back on his decades-long belief system to go to the extreme to save his friend. So I had no problem with him sending that message. I did think it was a little bit cornball that he was using the exact same Moff Gideon reference, but it's also meant as sort of a bone-chilling moment because Moff Gideon thought he was just saying something kind of badass, but to have this guy throwing it back in his face, you could see that look on Giancarlo's face. Like, I'm kind of worried now.
He remembered my words.
Yeah. You're not fucking here with me.
It was a heartwarming moment.
That's the thing. It's that speech is the exact speech, but it's in a completely different context now.
Sure.
It's like Watchmen. Yeah.
I just have a hard time believing that he would reveal himself like that. It's like, this is the play we're going to do. I'm announcing it all over the internet.
But he's not really doing anything. He's not revealing himself that much. He's just saying basically, I'm coming after you. And if Moff Gideon has any sense, he already knows it. But this is a declaration of war, which is a very specific thing that you do when you're going to attack someone. He wants Moff Gideon to know that he's coming for him. There's no more sneaking around. He's like, you better watch out for that next knock on your door because it might be me and my friends in this cool Slave One ship.
I have a hard time believing what the point is in that. I mean, obviously, unless he is, enlisting a Mandalorian army alongside him, great. But if you have a few in your group that are going after a prized possession on a, albeit small, Imperial cruiser that's probably filled with stormtroopers, maybe they can't shoot that great, but still they're outnumbered is what I'm saying. So why would you announce yourself like that? Why wouldn't you try and go after them in a more stealthy manner? I don't know.
Because the same reason
you might lead a squad of X-wings to attack a Death Star.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's all part
but
of
you're
the
not
plan.
announcing
They're gonna think it's him, and he's gonna do a little flickaroo and do and trick them.
When you have the fleet of X-wings showing up in front of the Death Star, that's sort of an announcement. I mean, whether he says it right away or sometime in the future, he's making his intentions known.
Sure, but General Doesnt never said to Tarkin, "Hey, we're coming after you."
Well, I don't think that he needed to. I mean, in this case, the reason you go up to your enemy and say, I'm coming after you, is because Mando and his crew are constantly being pursued. Mando is now saying, you're no longer chasing us. We're bringing the fight to you. So if you think you're going to scare us anymore, you've got another thing coming, and you better watch your back.
He's going to bring, I'm going to guess Cara Dune's going to bring in the rebels. The New Republic in. So, yeah, it's going to be something. I don't know. I could be wrong. I shouldn't make predictions. That's a bad thing for me to do. What did everyone think of that train fight?
It was fine. I mean, yeah. It literally felt like something out of a Western or Indiana Jones, so I saw some person comparing to Mad Max Fury Road, and I'm like, that's a stretch. But
no, I saw that too. I mean, but I think that's partially because it's very dusty, kind of sort of a vehicle train heist with these rickety skiffs and the not exactly desert people, but this ragtag group kind of attacking a tank. I can understand that. Yeah. It's not nearly as elegant as Mad Max was. I thought it was cool. I didn't really pick up on this until I watched that Easter egg video, which again will be linked down below. And you got to watch this because the guy, I don't know if it's just him or if it's a team of people breaking this stuff down, but they're translating the alien language, pick out Easter eggs. But he points out that the way that the tank shot, the tank scene began with Mando firing out one window, going back into the tank, going up the stairs up to the top. It was one continuous shot. That's something I didn't pick up on, but when I was watching it, I'm like, I need to watch that scene again because that's brilliant. What else did I miss?
Yeah, that guy's good, and there's also one that Screen Crush does with Easter eggs. That's really good too. And it's always good to pick up on stuff. I mean, it does make me interested in boning up on some of the comics and stuff. I'm like, the other announcement that they made is, and this kind of links to that, meaning I'm going to have a lot of reading time, is that season 3 of Mandalorian is going to drop at the end of December next year.
December 2021. Yeah. I feel like they also made this I'm trying to avoid the S word, a non-essential episode because they knew, okay, this week all the Star Wars television shows
are going to be announced,
are going to be dropped. So audiences will be like, oh, okay, these will bit story and the thing I want to see. I mean, Rick I'm not going to try to say his last name. He's wonderful at directing action and tension and stuff like that, but he's always kind of the guy who does the non-essential episodes in a way. He did the Mudhorn episode, he did the Prison Break episode, and now he did the Wages of Fear episode.
Yeah.
But he's wonderful at action.
He's good at what he does. I think he's a fine director.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I guess
I'd like to see him write an essential episode. I'd like them to give him one of those.
I guess this conversation kind of solidified for me that if we had 2 more chapters after this, I'd be fine.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it comes down to. I think if the filler episodes that we'd seen had been of this caliber, and I'll even grant that this could be considered a filler episode in that there wasn't a whole lot of forward momentum with the overall story, but there was a lot of important character detail that we learned.
Especially with Mando.
Right. I think if this had been the caliber of filler that we had on those 2 to 3 other blatantly filler episodes, this would be an entirely different conversation.
Yeah.
And a different tenor. I'm it was a weird feeling because I had expected, as I mentioned, the conditions under which my wife and I watched this, we just wanted to get it over with because I was expecting to kind of senioritis my way through the end of this season. Like, let's just see what happens and watch it. But for this to be something where it's like, I'm just waiting for this to be over, I was very entertained. And now I'm curious to see if the finale is going to be longer than an hour, is going to give me as satisfying a ride as it can, being that it has to essentially be something that's going to be unsatisfactory in order to make me wait for the next. It's going to be longer than a year between seasons now. This is coming out a year, like a year and 2 weeks or something like that, or a year and a week.
It's gonna be hard, but we'll have plenty of other stuff to watch.
Well, Bad Batch. Actually, Bad Batch should be cool. But, yeah.
I mean, Ian, you got to try to catch up with Clone Wars and Rebels. I think you will be satisfied.
Well, you could just watch the last 4 episodes of Clone Wars. I mean, you can and you cannot. You can skip to. I think there's an option for essential episodes, aren't there? Like you can see the Darth Maul episode and stuff like that.
Yeah, but building it up would be good.
Yeah, you gotta appreciate the good with the bad or the bad with the good. You say I can or cannot. That's not true. There is no try. So I will make you this promise. Contrary to what I said a few episodes back, I am going to watch season 3. I am also, between now and the debut of season 3, going to watch Clone Wars and Rebels. You've heard it here first.
Oh boy!
If you want to talk about it, we're here.
We're here. Yeah.
In addition to the other 17,000 Star Wars shows we got.
Right.
Just fair warning. Season 1, you can kind of play with your phone in the meantime during a lot of season 1.
You guys warned me about this.
The first couple seasons. Did you ever see the Clone Wars movie when it came out in theaters? Okay. It might be worth checking that out too, because then it goes right into the series pretty much. Yeah. Because that's where Ahsoka is introduced.
And people hated Ahsoka when she first came on screen, by the way.
I understand that.
I didn't even know that. I didn't even know who she was until last year.
I fell asleep in that movie and I was really ticked off. I took my nephew to see it and he was much younger then, but I was so ticked off that I would fall asleep in a Star Wars movie. I was like, oh.
One of my friends told me how I was reacting during Last Jedi, and it's exactly how you'd imagine like a triggered Star Wars fan to react.
Last Jedi.
Oh God,
you love it. You can't not stop talking about it.
I know.
That's a sign of a great movie.
It must be because I love it. That must be it.
Yeah. Hey,
maybe
you know what?
Maybe one day, maybe 10 years from now, you'll say I told you so.
Hey, I'm sure you've heard about this, but they were going to ask Hayden or Vader to come back and be in that shot with Yoda and Luke in Last Jedi. That would have been awful.
That would have been pretty bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I already brought him back as a Force ghost and Jedi redo.
But there would be no reason because Luke never really knew his father in that way. Yoda had more of an impact on Luke than his father did. So
that's why
they made a good choice.
That's why it made more sense when you saw
Sebastian Shaw.
Stan, I'm sorry. Or Shaw Stan, I remember.
Shaw.
Yeah. Not Sebastian Stan, not the guy that
he'll be playing the young Luke Skywalker.
Play a younger Luke Skywalker. Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
It's like Luke would remember the good in his father as an older man, not like who's this 20-some-year-old hot guy. Like that wouldn't make sense if he was there.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to catch up on, and I'll try and catch up as much as I can because there's going to be a whole lot more Star Wars. And if it's anything like Mandalorian, they're going to be cutting into the deep lore on all of these series. So pretty much it's just going to be everything's a reference to something else. And the references are going to overlap and interconnect and maybe weave back into the main story. So I got to do my homework.
We could relive it with you too.
There you go. There is worse homework than having to watch a lot of Star Wars. Yeah. So, thanks guys. I do want to catch up on some of these comments that Sejiwa left real quick because he was leaving these from way back.
Oh my God, it goes to hard written and directed episode.
Good faces. Hopefully in 3D.
Ooh,
just instead of a lot of different directors, they should bring in different writers for each episode.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Maybe some of the writing's weak, some of it's good. The thing I've said with my review for this episode of The Mandalorian is people always say, "Oh, I hate the prequels because of the space politics." It's like, here's the thing that people don't realize: we don't hate the space politics. It's that George Lucas, he's a wonderful world builder, but he's a horrible writer. If you even look at
dialogue,
even if you look at the original Star Wars, a lot of people don't realize this, but Francis Ford Coppola was a ghostwriter on it. That's why a lot of it was so intricately structured. Otherwise, it would have been a mess. And you know, if the space politics were well written and they were dynamic, if the love story was well written, all this stuff, we wouldn't have been complaining about it.
Yeah.
But it was horrible, and no one stopped him. I'm saying, yeah, bring in all that talking, because nobody minds the talking. You know, it's just how it's written. So
still got to sell toys, though.
Yeah. Well, you can still sell toys because you'll still have your action in between. I mean, look at Batman Begins. The action in it is terrible, but the story's good, and we love the overall style.
And you still have your creepy scarecrow figure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And the last comment is in reaction to Mondo's message. Sending a message was bad strategy. A surprise attack would be better. Well, I guess
we're on the attack.
Well, yeah, we're not going to know the answer to that until the resolution of the Moff Gideon storyline, if there actually is one, or if they just keep wagon training. But yeah, for now, I think we've done a pretty good talk on the Believer.
I think he's going to fight Ahsoka or somebody.
I just had an idea
behind the scenes that they have a lot of broken dark sabers on set.
It would have been funny. I just had an idea. It would have been funny to like cut away from the hologram that Mando was making. It was a Mango again. Django and Mando. That Mando was saying, and I cut away to like the cockpit of Boba Fett, and Fett would be like, "Why did you announce yourself like that?" And Cara Dune would be like, "What's our plan?" And Mando's like, "I don't know."
Just sounded badass.
I had a flash of, I don't know if anyone's ever seen THX 1138, but they had like the very intimate holograms, and if they just cut to like one of those, like of the guy dancing. All right.
There you go. That'd be great.
All right. Well, yeah, we will be back next week to talk about, I can't believe it, the season 2 finale of The Mandalorian. And I think it may be a slightly longer episode because I feel like, depending on how much there is to talk about with that episode, we may spend some time doing a season 2 kind of retrospective. Or it may be that the only thing to talk about for the finale is the season 2 retrospective and how did it all lead to this, whatever this is. So,
and we'll have a special guest, so that's good.
Yes. So looking forward to that. Thank you once again. I didn't introduce you guys, but fortunately your names will be on the screen. David Fowley of Keeping It Real and Mike Crowley of You'll Probably Agree. Check both their things out. We've got Sajiwa also joining us again in the comments. Thank you very much. Happy birthday again. Look out for the Secret Society for Slow Romance coming soon, or in 2021.
Near you.
Yes, to a galaxy. No, a galaxy that we're living in. Not even near.
I don't want this galaxy.
Oh well, it's got to get better. 2020 is almost behind us.
Yeah, so Julian, maybe your next movie could be on an alien planet. That would be great.
I think we're living on an alien planet. But anyway, thanks a lot, guys. Thank you for watching out there, watching live and also catching up with the stream later. Please like and subscribe and share this video if you feel so compelled. And join us back here next week, 8:30 p.m. Central for What If He Doesn't Survive Live, the big finale of season 2. And have a good night, everybody. Perfect.
Cheers.
Yay, guys.